Alrighty. So another year, another coaching search, because, this can never be simple. The first one I want to talk about here is Rick Dennison. I know he's kind of a guy that nobody's talking about, but assuming Gary Kubiak doesn't take the job, because I imagine he's going to get the first crack at, do you want to be the offensive coordinator? But I imagine he wouldn't want it just because he's turned down these jobs in the past because of his health issues and things like that. So I'm not anticipating him to take it. But Rick Dennison, I point out here, is because he's had three offensive coordinators, three guys, be his offensive coordinators when Gary Kubiak was the head coach. Mike Shanahan, probably safe to say that's not going to be coaxed out of retirement. Kyle Shanahan obviously can't. And then Rick Dennison is the third one. So I know a lot of people are talking about Clint Kubiak and, things like that, which obviously possibility. But I'm just thinking this is probably the most likely, so I wanted to go over him first. If you want to go over, passing isn't that great for this. The most amount of touchdowns they've ever thrown with him as an offensive coordinator was 24, and they've gotten up to as many as 23 interceptions in a season, and as low as a rating as 76.3, with the highest quarterback rating being 92.7. So, not the best. Obviously, rushing pretty good because it's Kubiak's, and for the most part, it's pretty good. He was with Houston from 2010 to 2013, and then he followed Kubiak to Denver in 2015 and 2016. So yeah. The average season, if you wanted to put this into perspective, the total yardage was 359.4 yards a game, which would have been 15th in this season. 5.5 yards per play, which would have been 15th as well. Pass yards per game, 239, which would have been 12th. 36 sacks allowed, which is 12th. 84.7 rating, which would be 22nd. 21 touchdowns, which would have been 24th. 15 picks, which would have been 21st. Only a completion percentage of 61.3, which would have been 24. Rushing yards, 120.4, which would have been 12. Yards per carry, 4.2, which would have been 20th. Almost 15 rushing touchdowns a year, which would have been 18. Points per game, 22.4, 18. Third down percentage, which is super low at 37.7%, which would have been 19. So, just for reference, I have the Vikings 2019 numbers in all of these categories. So they got 353.5 total yards a game, which would 16th, so they're one below the average Rick Dennison season. They're 5 above in yards per play at 5.8 to 5.5. However, they are 13 spots lower at 23 at pass yards per game. They're 5th in sacks, but, Rick Dennison would have been 12th. Rating, vast difference here. 22nd for Dennison, 6th for the 2019 Viking team. Touchdowns, 21 versus 26, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that could be, which is 24th for the 21 and 14th for the 26. Interceptions, 15, once again, 21. 8 interceptions for Minnesota, which is 5, so obviously much better. 68.5% for Minnesota, but 61.3% for Dennison, which that is by far the biggest one because that's 24th compared to Minnesota's 4th there. Rush yards per game, they were higher at 133.3 compared to the 120.4 that Dennison's teams were able to average. 4.5 yards per carry for Minnesota's, 4.2 for him. Rushing touchdowns, like I said, nearly 15. Minnesota got 19. Points per game, 25.4 and 22.4. So that's 18th versus 8th. And third down percentage, 37.7 versus 43%. So 19th versus 9. And I know the numbers aren't great They aren't that thrilling and all that, but this has been Gary's guy for many years before, and I think in fairness to Rick Dennison, when it comes to some of this, you could argue Kirk Cousins would be his best quarterback that he would be inheriting. Because if you go through this, in 2010 when this started with Kubiak, I only have his numbers for when he was with Kubiak because I thought those would be the most relevant, by the way. But yeah, in 2010 when that first started, it was Matt Schaub. 2011 it was Matt Schaub, Matt Leinart, TJ Yates. 2012 it was just Matt Schaub again. And then 2013 you had Schaub and Keenum. And then in 2015 with Denver, you had Osweiler and Peyton Manning, but Peyton Manning was the much worse version of Peyton Manning. If you guys remember, that was the year where the defense really carried that team, and Manning was just kind of a shell of himself. And then in 2016, the last year he was an offensive coordinator under Kubiak here, it was Trevor Siemian and Paxton Lynch. So he could very well be inheriting the best quarterback he's ever had under center, which would be a very, very good thing. And I do think a lot of that has to do with this because the numbers are semi-similar up until you get to some of these throwing things. So it's just, if he has a better quarterback, is it better? Obviously, yes, but I think this is like the safest option. I don't think this is going to get anyone really jazzed up. Like, oh, we got Rick Dennison. That's our guy now. Like, I mean, we already have him, but I mean, you guys know what I'm trying to say. It's not someone that you're going to be pounding the table for, that you want them to hire this guy. But I do think it's probably the most likely option given the history that he continues to go to him as his offensive coordinator. And it'll be interesting to see what they do as an offensive line coach from that perspective. But, yeah. Sorry. But I would like to know what your comments are down, in the comment section. Liking, subscribing, always helpful. And until next time, I bid y'all adieu.